Ladies and gentlemen, the superhuman, Judy Brewer.
I don't feel very superhuman, John. I feel very tired most of the time, but thank you for that, and thank you for that lovely welcome. And a very special occasion for me to be here with Dame Marie Bashir, who is one of my idols, dare I say, and one of the greatest Australians we have. I'm envious of you New South Welshmen to have a governor of someone so special and so committed to families, but particularly that interest in autism spectrum disorder that you've had for so long, and what a gift to have you here today. Fantastic. I'm also very lucky, yes, absolutely. I could go on, I could spend my whole few minutes here talking about Dame Marie because we have this lovely connection because Dame Marie came from Narrandera. Rural, it shows what rural girls can do, doesn't it? And I'm also lucky today, I've got my husband in the audience, which is a very rare event, and Tim comes from very near Narrandera, so there's something about the water out there, I think, and Brewer Creek and Narrandera are like twin cities, very important parts of the world. And the only reason Tim is here today is because we are gathering in a railway yard, and when I told him that you'll have to find 2 locomotive place, he said, yeah, I'll be there. So that's a bit of an in-joke, you really have to know Tim to understand that one. But it is great to be here. It's a gathering of families, educators, professionals, and especially people with the lived experience of autism, and I pay a particular tribute to my beautiful future leaders. They're not mine, they're our beautiful future leaders, and I'm looking at some of them around the room, and what wonderful people that we have in our community that come forward and are presenting at this conference, and it's so many. And also to the other adults with autism here, the wonderful Wendy Lawson, who I don't know whether, Wendy, you're here yet, but you are coming, another one of the very most special Australians we have with us. When you saw the title of my talk today, Why Research Matters to Families, you either turned on your phones and said, well, ho-hum, or you said, well, as Basil Fawlty would say, that's stating the bleeding obvious, Sybil. It really is. Why wouldn't research matter to families? I mean, that's what it's all about. And yet, in my experience, there's been a disconnect between what's happening in the research world and what's happening with families. Not just families, but again, people with the lived experience and people that work in our autism community in other fields, not just in research. It seems a ridiculous assertion to say that research should matter to families, and yet when someone said to me now 4 years ago, would I be involved in the National Cooperative Research Centre for Autism, as a parent, I said, no way, no way. Why would I be interested in spending my time in a research centre? I've got more important things to do. I'm caring for my son, I'm banging on doors, I'm writing letters, I'm doing all that other stuff. You know, I'm fighting for services. I'm not fighting for research, for God's sake. You know, there's only so many hours in the day. And it took me a long time to actually come around to the realisation that what I was really fighting for was research. Because what we want, of course, is we want some answers. When our son was first diagnosed, our son's now 20, in fact he's 21 in November. I feel like I've said that many, many times. I've said my son is now 3, my son is now 4, my son is now 10, well, he's nearly 21. 18 years ago, Tim and I were sitting in a doctor's clinic in Canberra after 101 different doctors and specialists and professionals had told us there was nothing wrong with our son. And eventually someone said, well, the doctor said, we think your son has autism. What's autism? What is it? I don't know anything about it, you know. What does that mean? So is it curable? What causes it? Will our other son get it? You know, where does he go now? What's the best treatment? What school will he have? Will he have a life? Will he get married? Will he live till he's 100? All those questions. And in response, we got, well, they're all very good questions, but we don't know any of those answers. But here's a little piece of paper with some stick figures on it, and good luck. Now, I think we've moved a little bit since then, and yet I still find families that have a similar experience when they come out with a diagnosis of autism and their head is just buzzing with questions that cannot be answered. And they spend their life, of course, on the University of Google, and they try very hard to find those answers. And sometimes they find the answers, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they find the wrong answers, and that can be an incredibly expensive and soul-destroying experience. But despite 18 years going on, the fundamental unknowns remain. When does autism start? What causes it? What are the best treatments? How much intensity should we give to these treatments? What sort of structures? What sort of an educational environment works best? What vocational pathways are open? How do people with autism find their place in our society and live those happy and valued lives? And the answer is bringing together all the people that work in this field, all the people who are part of our community and our autism community, and putting their knowledge and skills together to find the truths. Sometimes in the autism community, we don't work together very well. We sort of form tribes, I think, and I see it very much at conferences. When you go to a conference and there's the, dare I say, the teacher tribe, and the researcher tribe, and the health professional tribe, and the people with autism tribe, and the parents, families tribe. And they tend to stay in their tribes because often we stream our conferences such that they have to go into those particular areas. And they come away from the experience learning a lot about their own tribe, but not a lot about everyone else's tribe. And we have that complete cross-pollination of ideas. And that is really what underpins the idea of a national cooperative research centre for autism. So we've just heard that in the last 15 years, so much research has happened. It has gone gangbusters. It is crazy out there. Everyone wants to research autism. The money is starting to come through. There is a lot of opportunity. And in Australia particularly, the timing of this is very important, because what we're seeing in Australia at the moment is, firstly, an avalanche of children with autism coming into our schools, because we know there is this bump coming through in terms of the demographic. So we're having schools throw up their hands saying, I can't cope, what am I going to do? That might be your school, that might not be. And then we're having these reforms happening in our education system, sort of post-Gonski, and for our international visitors, Gonski's a person, but post, it's now part of the vernacular. I think it'll be in the next Australian dictionary. But the Gonski reforms mean that we are actually looking at need-based allocations of funding rather than label-based allocations of funding. We're looking at a different distribution through the schools, from private and to government schools. And more importantly, we have the National Disability Insurance Scheme starting. And probably this is the one that will be the biggest game changer. Because what is happening in our pilot programs with NDIS? Who are the biggest group of people coming through needing services? People with autism. Oh, you had a slow lot this morning. Okay, all right. So the biggest group coming through to the NDIS needing services are people with autism. And what is the government and service providers and people in these pilot areas, soon to be a national program, what are they doing? They're saying, where are the services? I can only provide services with an evidence base, and how do I get that evidence base? So it's great timing for us to be starting to bring all the parties together and saying, we can provide an evidence base for your services to get the best services in diagnosis, in education, and in adult services. And in terms of adult services, we're also seeing this extraordinary pressure, budgetary pressure, real or imagined. Now, I'm not going to get into that, but the budgetary pressure about welfare reform. And again, what are we seeing? The grouping that are most struggling to get places in employment, that are most represented in welfare, that are going to be shunted off welfare into jobs, and the jobs aren't there because the structure's not there, and there's no evidence to underpin what the services are. So I said, a whole perfect storm of circumstances have created the need for something like the National Autism Cooperative Research Centre. What a mouthful that is, but the Autism CRC. So there's momentum and there's quantum. The key word in our title is cooperative. We're doing it completely different to how anyone has ever done it before. It's not a university-based system, it's an industry-based system. So the Cooperative Research Centre model comes from industry. It has to be end-user driven. They use all these terms like end user, but of course end users, us, the autism community, we're the end users. So it's a partnership, as was said between universities, 7 universities, autism peak bodies, corporate Australia, business communities, services, education departments in some states, some Catholic education systems, some state government education systems, government are our biggest partner as well, and it is all working together. Never been done before in autism. The other thing that in our title that it makes us unique, so we're cooperative, so we share that research with all those people. They all have access to the research. Is that we're a cooperative for living with autism spectrum disorders. So I take the word living, that's really important. We're not about just finding the cause, finding the cure, doing the genetic makeup. We're about making people's lives better. And the only measure of our success will be if that research is translated into making lives better. Part of that is our whole of life approach. What we've seen not only is the tribes, but we've seen the silos. So we have research about diagnosis, and we have research about early intervention, and we have research about education, and we have research about training and transition to vocational services, and we have research about, well, not a lot, mind you, about ageing, but that's coming. And they don't talk. Our centre is whole of life, seamless. While we have separate programs, each program feeds into each other. It's from conception to death. That's the truth of it. From birth to ageing. And some of our studies go over longitudinal studies over 8 years and hopefully even more, so that we can track the same people and see what happens when they get to all those transition points. It's really revolutionary stuff. It took 4 years to put it together, and I'm really glad that when they said, you know, research really is important, that I actually listened, because I have learnt so much in that 4 years. We're 1 year into an 8-year program. We have 17 commissioned programs started, and you can see all this on our website. And there is plenty of time to be involved because we're going to be around for a very long time. Every year we fund projects from across Australia that fit these aims, but the key part of it is not only to fit the aims, but it has to be cooperative. So it has to have, each project has a partner who is an end user. People with autism, a school, an organisation, service provider, they have to be part of the program. And each program, no one's just doing research on their own, it's all collaborative. Our aim is research of the people, by the people, for the people. We're doing things differently. We have a commitment to consultation at every stage. We have a code of conduct, which we have produced. It governs the ethics of our work. It talks about giving respect and valuing the people that contribute to our work. One of the hardest things in research is actually getting people to contribute to your work. Getting people to say, yeah, look, I'm going to put my life under the microscope. I'm going to fill in your forms. I'm going to be interviewed. I'm going to give you that time. And so part of what we're doing is finding ways to value that contribution, because we can't just expect people to keep doing that and get nothing out of it, not even see the results of the research. So we have that contract with people when they give us their lives to analyse. We're having webinars starting this year on each of ours, so the whole autism community can log in. I'm pretty Teflon coated. I don't care what's thrown at us. We'll answer whatever gets thrown at us because we're really proud of what our work is. We have a world-first Lab to Life program. This is where we take the researchers out of the labs and we put them where they're actually the people they're working on. So it may be in schools, and it may be in communities, and it may be with service providers. But we do the reverse too. We actually take the people who are getting our research and put them into the labs. So this exchange of ideas underpins everything we do. We currently have 3 autism parents on our board. So again, and our dream is to, of course, and a commitment to having a person with autism on our board as soon as possible. We already have people with autism sitting on most of our committees. So we already have a commitment of $110 million to this project. The largest project of its kind in Australia. It's exciting, it's empowering, it's putting people first. It's going to change the face of autism research. I don't want to overpromise, and I probably have, but it's really what we make it. We have this opportunity to embrace something different and to do it differently. Everyone's looking at us saying, well, can you do it? Internationally, this hasn't been tried before. There's lots of, again, research centres in isolation, but ours is a very holistic approach. We are all about finding the answers to the questions we seek. If I was to ask each of the tribes, what is it you want? What can we do? What would be the best thing we could do for you? They would say, I suspect, or certainly people with autism would say, well, we want the best early diagnosis. We want diagnosis gold standard, saying that we don't have misdiagnosis. We want it early so that the services can start. We want an educational environment that works for us, that's designed for people with autism. We want a pathway to a vocation. We want a happy life. We want a job. People with autism would say that. Parents would say that. Siblings would say that. Teachers would say that. Health professionals would say that. Researchers would say that. Government would say that. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? Why aren't we doing it? So we know what we want. We want services based in truth. Services that can be translated and have an evidence base. If you want to be part of the ride, sign up on our website, autismcrc.com.au. It's not an ad, we're a not-for-profit organisation. So, does research matter to families? Yeah, of course it does. And that is stating the bleeding obvious. Thank you.